As we gather for prayer today on this Easter Wednesday, dear friends, we receive from the great treasury of the Scriptures two very beautiful readings. If you look at it, it's two stories of healings. In the first reading, we see a physical healing. This man who for many years has been crippled, waiting at the beautiful gate of the temple, asking for alms, begging, is through the power of the Spirit and through the goodness of Peter and John and their actions, gains strength in his legs and finally begins to walk. He doesn't have to sit there by the beautiful gate anymore. He, as the reading says, jumps up, stands, begins to walk, and goes with Peter and John into the temple, praising God. In the Gospel, there is also a healing that happens. As these two disciples walk along on the way back to Emmaus, their hearts are broken. We hear that their hopes have been dashed. They placed all their hope in this Jesus of Nazareth. But the scandal of the cross was a bit too much for them. And on that day, on that Easter Sunday, they probably heard too much already, of those who went to the tomb and had visions. And probably tired and grieving, they decided to go home. And it is there, in their sadness as they walk along, that a mysterious stranger joins them. They find that their hearts were burning as this stranger talks to them, almost as if we can't recognize this guy, but somehow our hearts do. And as they walk along, as Jesus explains the Scriptures to them, and finally when he breaks the bread, he heals their broken hearts. Yes, by spending time with them, but also by giving himself to them and by remaining with them. They ask him, "Stay with us, Lord. It's almost evening, the day is almost over." And suddenly, the stranger sits at the table with them and becomes their host, who takes the bread, breaks it, gives a blessing. Isn't this the story of our lives over and over again, dear friends? As we walk along the journey of life, somehow we find that our Lord is walking by our side. Sometimes hidden from our sight, but there. Sometimes we are not able to recognize him too. We only recognize that he has been there after the crisis, after the fact. How good is the Lord? He journeys with us. He carries us. He cares about our broken hearts. Just like the disciples in today's gospel, he says, What matters are you discussing? What things are bothering you? What has broken your heart? What are you still carrying? The disciples say, our own hope had been that he would be the one to set Israel free. What they didn't realize was that the reality, that's their hope, but that the reality is that this Jesus is the one who will set all of us free. Not just Israel, not just their people. And so we see again this love of God that embraces all of us, even here, even now. As we go through and yet another day of Easter, dear friends, I hope that you and I would spend some time to see those times in our lives where our Lord has walked alongside us, where the Lord has really journeyed with us and not abandoned us in the problems and issues that have come up in our lives. When we see that, we realize our great need of Him, for Him. And when we realize that He has been there all along, I think one of the first things that will spring up in our heart is gratitude. alongside that burning love which the disciples felt. And dear friends, of course, Christ the Lord powerfully, in a way, reenacts the scene of Emmaus whenever we come to Holy Mass. Once more, He walks by our side to explain the Scriptures to us. Once more, He breaks the bread. Once more, He gives us energy to run, to jump, to walk forward, to praise, to live. It is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad. Alleluia.